So, pet peeve time. I'm going to have a little rant here. I got an inquiry today via socials. It's one that we get every now and then. Not that we get too often anymore. We've sort of got a really good client base that understand what we do and how we do it. But you still get these ones every now and again. I've had someone reach out and say, hey, Alex, really interested in you guys. You know, content looks great, whatever. Heard some good reviews, but I've got a quote for 4,500 grafts for $3,000. Can you beat it? Look, there is a couple of issues with this. First and foremost, I have a massive problem with anybody that will quote you based on the number of grafts. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first is often these consults are done online, so it's really difficult to get a good understanding of not just the hair density, but the type of hair that a patient has. And that has a lot to do with the number of grafts that you need. And also, depending on, you know, when you go to do the transplant and you take the donor hairs, depending on whether those individual grafts have 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 hairs in the single graft, the number of grafts you need changes dramatically, right? So when I did my first transplant, I've talked about this a lot, the donor hair in the back of my head were a minimum of 3, 4, and 5 hairs in each graft. So realistically, if I had had 4,000 grafts, that would have been 12,000 hairs. I mean, that's insane. That's not necessary. So immediately once you start taking those and you're seeing that you're taking lots of multi-hair grafts, you tone that down and you reduce the number of grafts you need to take. Now, that's not a clinic being cheap or lazy. That's a clinic, a good clinic, understanding that your donor hair is seriously valuable and you don't want to over-harvest. You want to leave yourself enough hair for a second, third crack, whatever might be the case. So that's my first issue with quoting based on grafts. My second issue is, look, if you don't use us, that's totally fine. We are never ever going to compete on price. What I will do is give you a one-on-one consultation, whether that's in person or through a video call. I will give you an honest assessment where your hair kind of stands at the moment and whether a hair transplant is the right option for you. We have guys that come up that are, I call it horseshoe bald, right? Like literally a ring of hair around and nothing on top. Yes, you can have a hair transplant, absolutely fine. But unless you have the most ridiculously large and dense donor area, you're going to have to pick whether you want hair in the front, a little bit of hair in the middle, or a little bit of hair in the back. If you're that bald, I can't give you a full head of hair. Nobody can, right? So there are definitely things we can do to make you look less bald. There's things we can do in collaboration with other sort of treatments like SMP that'll give you the illusion of density combined with a hair transplant. But, you know, we're always going to be honest. I'm not going to go, for sure, let's sign you up for a 6,000 unit mega session and get you going. No, it's always going to be an honest consult. And that means that we don't just work on price. We work on a treatment plan and strategy that suits you, the right clinic with the right staff that can get the job done properly, and we price that accordingly. We are still incredibly cheap compared to Australian clinics, and that doesn't mean that you get any less quality or talent. In fact, quite the opposite. The Turkish teams that we use are absolutely amazing. I'd quite confidently say they are world leading, but you pay accordingly. All right, so there are clinics in Turkey where you can get a hair transplant for $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. I was in Istanbul the other week and there was a barber shop that had a sign that said hair transplants, and there was a guy sitting in the back corner with a client on a barber chair getting a hair transplant, right? So there are places you can get hair transplants really cheaply. Conversely, you know, would you in Australia go to the butcher and ask him to chop off a limb, right? Yes, they know how to do it on a cow, but they're probably not the right person to talk to for a human, right? You want to go see an orthopedic surgeon. You want the right team, the right skill set. I think Turkey's definitely the place to do it. It's a heck of a lot cheaper, but we don't compete solely on price.